Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Podcast. On this Monday, it's the beginning of a brand new, glorious week. Before I get into anything else, thoughts and prayers, well wishes to everybody down, still in Texas recovering, and people dealing with the storm down in Florida. Our thoughts are with you guys, and I just want to encourage everybody who's watching this video, take a second. There are lots of both text, online, different ways to donate to people recovering down there, whether it's Red Cross or lots of different numbers. Just hop online, find a way to donate, contribute a little bit of money, skip one trip to Arby's this week, and just contribute a little bit of money. When we all do that, it makes a big difference. Let's help some fellow movie fans out who live down in those areas. All right, guys, so this is the show, of course, that I do every single day, talking about everything going on in our favorite worlds, movies and television, just entertainment and stuff like that, talking about a whole bunch of different crap. Now, I got a few issues lined up here that I want to talk about, and then I've got a bunch of topics that you guys have sent in to me. I take topics and questions that you guys send in to me every single day. How do you get a question sent to me? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Now, granted, I get a lot of emails, so I can't get around to every single question that gets sent in to me. And by the way, guys, if you do send in a question, I've been noticing a trend. People have been writing their theses, and they've been writing their theses? That's like feces. Anyway, they've been sending in like novels of questions. No. Keep your question to about 90 words or less, okay? Keep your questions to about 90 words or less, or else I can't fit it in. So just a little tip for those of you who are sending in emails, don't send these big long tomes because I can't do them anyway. So keep them to 90 words or less if you can. That would be great. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get to the first topic today. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is It. Now, It, of course, yesterday the weekend box office estimates came out at $117 million. The now official numbers have come in, and as expected, they were bumped up just a little bit, bumped up by $6 million. They're now saying the opening weekend of It is $123 million. Now, it doesn't change a lot from the estimates. We're still talking about the biggest opening in September history, crushing the previous record, which was held by Hotel Transylvania 2. I think that made like $148 million. This is now nearly tripled that. It's roughly tripled that, a little bit less than that, but it's blown it away. It has absolutely blown the record away. It destroyed the previous record of biggest opening by a horror film. That was Paranormal Activity 3, I believe, which was at like $52 million. It now at $123 million. The hits just keep on coming. Now, the only big major significant record it wasn't able to topple was the largest opening weekend for an R-rated film of all time. That is still being held by Deadpool at $132 million. Here's the interesting thing. With $123 million, one can't help but suspect that it may have actually beat the Deadpool record if you take two things into consideration. Number one, the devastation of the storms that we've already talked about in southern Florida and in Texas. Now, that wouldn't have made the world of difference, but it would have made a little bit of a difference, maybe $5 to $10 million difference. Then, of course, the whole point that I had that, they didn't lift the review embargo until 48 hours before the movie came out. And with how positive the reviews are, I think if they had released that review embargo 2 or 3 days earlier, I think we would have seen another $5 to $10 million difference. Now, you add the $5 to $10 million from the storm and maybe $5 to $10 million from an earlier review embargo, you might, it's not a guarantee, but we might have been talking about It also breaking the record of Deadpool, but whatever. It still made $123 million, which just shatters all expectations. The early expectations were $50 million opening weekend, and that was great. Remember, they were talking about a $50 million opening weekend for It, and that was an exciting number. That would have been considered a great number. That would have made it the second largest opening in horror movies of all time. That was great. And then, the trailers were great. Some buzz started going. It's like, maybe it'll be 60. And then some early people saw it, and they didn't review it, but they put up some social media reactions, and that bumped up the estimates to $75 million. Then, once the critic reactions came out, they upped that estimate to 100 million, and now we're sitting at 123 million. And that is just spectacular for this film. Where is this series going to go? How many more are we going to see? When are they going to get into production on It 2? Because obviously there was supposed to be a part 2 for the It movie. And some people were asking me, John, why didn't they just shoot It? If they knew it needed to be 2 movies, and it does, why didn't they just shoot it back to back? Because you never know. You can't just shoot it back to back because, remember, a lot of people, myself included, I was wrong, thought that this sounded like a terrible idea. And, they were rolling the dice a little bit. Warner Brothers was rolling the dice by doing an It movie. And I think they were very wise to not get ahead of themselves and shoot it back to back. Hindsight now, sure, it made $123 million. Wouldn't it have been great if they shot them back to back? Sure, but that's hindsight. And that's the rare exception. Okay, so you can't take the rare exception and then build a philosophy around the exception. I think they were very wise because you never know. I mean, it could have come out and opened to $18 million. You just don't know. They didn't know at the time. None of us knew it was going to be this successful. So I think that's why they couldn't have done that and why they didn't do that. And I think they were pretty smart to show some restraint. But again, some amazing success. I know a lot of you still haven't had the chance to see it. I've been getting a lot of emails from people saying, went to the theater, but it was packed, couldn't get in. I'm sure that now we get into the opening weekend is done. We're getting into the week now. I'm sure you'll get a chance to go see it. Again, I don't want to overemphasize how good I think the movie is. I think the movie's very good. It's not in my top 5 movies of the year. My friend Corey was over last night. We did our Orville review, and she was asking me, is it top 5 of the year? And I said, no, not top 5 of the year. She goes, is it in your top 10 of the year? And I said, okay, yeah, I'll put it in my top 10 of the year for right now. I doubt it'll still be in my top 10, but the point is, it's so much better than we were expecting. And it's really exciting to see a film that deserves it making this kind of money. Transformers. Anyway, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic is this. So I was not aware they were anywhere near releasing a trailer, but I guess I should have known. But a brand new trailer for 50 Shades Freed got released yesterday. Yes, 50 Shades Freed. The trailer got released yesterday. And much like 50 Shades Darker, I'll say this. It was just a little teaser. It wasn't like a full 2-minute trailer. I think it was only about a minute. But it's not bad. It wasn't a bad little 2-minute teaser. And you know what? As god-awful, maybe one of the worst motion pictures, certainly I put it in my top 10, worst wide-release Hollywood motion pictures ever made was 50 Shades Darker. It's laughable. It didn't feel like some college film students made it. It felt like some preschool film students made it. I mean, it was just one of the worst films ever, which is really kind of odd because 50 Shades Darker was not a good movie. It was a bad movie, but it was just another bad movie. Whatever. It was just a bad movie. Good attempt. They tried some things. Didn't quite work. Okay, not a good movie. Bad movie. 50 Shades Darker took it to a whole new level of suck. I mean, they took suck and they put it up to 11. I mean, just one of the worst things ever. But and I still stand by this. That first trailer that came out for 50 Shades Darker was not a bad little trailer. To take a really horrible movie and make that horrible movie into not a bad trailer, whichever trailer company put that trailer together, bravo, folks. Bravo to you, because you hid one of the most stinking, steaming piles of dung of a movie ever made. But anyway, so the new trailer came out, 50 Shades Freed, and it's not bad. It's not bad. The problem with it is, though, is that I've seen 50 Shades Darker. I saw the last film. So even though they put together a pretty decent little teaser trailer, I'm looking at this teaser trailer with the knowledge of the last film and how bad that last film is. So I see these characters. I see her old boss coming up behind her and realizing, oh, but the thing is, I know how lame and how stupid this boss character is, or this ex-boss character is. I know how lame and stupid this. Oh, they're showing some sexy scenes. Yeah, but I saw all the sexy scenes, and your sexy scenes are not sexy. It's just the same vanilla crap 4 or 5 times in the movie with the same 2 people in the same position. I mean, that ain't hot and that ain't sexy. So it was a decent trailer. The problem is, people like me, and maybe some people like you who hated yourself enough to watch 50 Shades Darker, we are watching this new trailer through the lens of having seen the last movie. So they did a great job making it. I just know how lame it looks. I am going to go see this movie opening weekend out of pure morbid curiosity. I got to see if they learned anything from that last film, if they have improved anything from that last film, because damn, it can't get much worse. It can't get much worse. All right, with that out of the way, next topic I want to talk about here for a second is, as I mentioned, my friend Corey was over here last night because we wanted to watch the series premiere of The Orville, the new show with Seth MacFarlane. I love Seth MacFarlane. I absolutely love Seth MacFarlane. No, I wasn't a big fan of 50 or A Million Ways to Die in the West, granted, but I really love Ted. I love Family Guy. I'm a big fan of his. And when he's hosting Saturday Night Live, Seth MacFarlane is ace. I mean, he's just fantastic. So, I mean, clearly it's a Star Trek ripoff, tribute, satire. I'm not really sure what it really is meant to be. I don't think the show is really sure on what it meant to be. And ultimately, that was the problem for me. Now, we put up like a full 6-minute review of it, but I'll just say this about it. I think it had some moments. I really liked the preview. I liked the trailer a lot. Unfortunately, literally all of the funniest stuff is in the trailer. And I think there were maybe 4 or 5 moments in watching the show, the hour-long episode, going, ha, and that's about it. Like, I never had any hard laughs. I never had consistent laughs. And it felt to me, and this was my big takeaway, and I know a bunch of you guys watched it and liked it, and that's awesome. That's the beautiful thing about entertainment, like film and television, is that it's all subjective, and I think it's great if you liked it. But to me, watching it, I felt like it can't decide if it wants to be a comedy or if it actually really wants to be a Star Trek show. Like, there are good 10-minute stretches of the show where it's like, oh, this isn't a comedy and this isn't a satire. This is really Seth MacFarlane trying to make his own Star Trek show. But there's not enough of that. And when he's trying to make his own Star Trek show, then he'll throw in a completely out-of-place joke for a real Star Trek show. And that's funny. And then they have about 5-minute stretch where there's some okay laughs, but then it loses its momentum. It's just that I feel like The Orville doesn't have a sense of what its identity is as a show and really what they want it to be. And they're trying to be too many things. And when you try to be too many things, you do none of it right. And I just feel it needs to zero in. So I'm going to check out episode 2. I'm going to check out episode 3 and see how it goes. I didn't think it was horrible. It's not like I watched it and it was like painful watching it. No, it's just that, you go into a movie or a TV show and you're at level 0, okay? You can go down or you can go up, but you start at level 0. And, you get 50 Shades Darker and it's just like, it just sinks and sinks and sinks and sinks, right? It's just horrible. So I got a horrible experience. The Orville didn't do that. To me, what the Orville, though, did is just it stayed right around that starting mark, that 0 mark. It didn't do anything horrendously bad, not at all, but it really didn't do anything to make me want to feel excited about coming back and watching the next episode. You know what I mean? And again, don't just take my word for it. There are people out there who quite enjoyed it, and that's great. Give it a shot. Check it out for yourself. I feel like it needs to find its footing, and maybe it can become a really good show. I'm not sure. But we're just going to have to wait and see on that. That was my experience with watching The Orville. I'm curious, what was your experience with it? Jump into the comments section and let me know your thoughts. All right. With those topics out of the way now, I want to get to the questions that you guys sent in. Now, you're about to see that the first question that I picked out is from one of my Patreon supporters. Since leaving my full-time gigs and decided to do my YouTube channel full-time, the only way that all these videos and all this content I create is possible is because of my Patreon supporters. We have audio-only podcasts. We have exclusive podcasts just for Patreon supporters. We have an exclusive Facebook group. We do exclusive live chats with our Patreon members. Go to my Patreon. That's patreon.com/John Campea. Check it out. Get the details and see if maybe being one of my Patreon supporters is something for you. And if it's not, that's perfectly okay. I'm just glad you're here and joining the conversation. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to the first topic and email that you guys have sent in. And that comes from, as I mentioned, one of my Patreon supporters, Ben Rayner, who writes, "For the longest time, since about 2012, whenever somebody asks the question, what is the best comic book movie, there is always the same two answers. And that is The Dark Knight and Marvel's The Avengers. My question is, now with Logan out and being a masterpiece of a film, can we make the questions with 2 answers, 2 questions with 3 answers now?" Thanks a lot for the question, Ben. And yes, Logan, to me, is still the best film of the year. Not the best comic book film of the year. To me, Logan is still the best film of the year. Who would have thought that coming into a year where you had, Thor Ragnarok, where you had Spider-Man Homecoming, where you had, Wonder Woman, where you had that the best comic book movie of the year isn't going to be a DC film, and it isn't going to be a Marvel film. It's going to be a Fox film. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that would be the case? I certainly didn't think that would be the case, but it's going to be the case. Yes, Thor Ragnarok could come out and surprise. Yes. Justice League, and I'm sure Thor Ragnarok is going to be very good. I'm very excited about it. I'm sure Justice League is going to be very good, and I'm very excited about it. I just have high levels of doubt that either of those two movies will be as good as Logan. And they don't need to be. They just need to be really good movies. Just be good movies, Thor Ragnarok and Justice League, and everything's great. I just have a very hard time believing that either one of those two films will be on the same level as Logan. And it's kind of become it's the in style now to dump on Logan. I'm seeing more and more comments from people, certainly the vast minority, but still more comments from people saying, "Oh, Logan's overrated." And I'm just like, all right, sure. I mean, all film's subjective. It absolutely is. If you didn't see it for what it is, or you didn't see it a certain way, if it didn't hit you a certain way, that's totally cool. That's what film and art is all about. There are movies other people love that I don't like. Blade Runner, for instance. I'm in the vast minority, but whatever. So that's fine. That's cool. But Blade Runner, or Logan, I should say, is a freaking brilliant movie. Not just the best comic book movie of the year, the best movie of the year. So, yes, generally speaking, for the last number of years, when the question comes up, what is the greatest comic book movie of all time? It's one of two answers. It's The Dark Knight and it's Marvel's The Avengers. Now you get these DC fanboys who goes, Avengers sucks. It doesn't belong up there. And you get these Marvel fanboys. Dark Knight isn't that good. It shouldn't be one top two. It's okay. It's like, no. When you go to the general movie-going audience and you put it out there, best comic book movies ever made, the two answers above all are The Dark Knight and Avengers. I remember we did our March Movie Madness a couple of years ago. And we had, I think, 64 entrants in that. And it was no contest. It came down to the final two. And nothing else came close. It was Dark Knight and it was Avengers. And nothing else came close. And the final vote between Dark Knight and Avengers was extremely close. And Dark Knight ended up winning our tournament. But, I mean, it came damn close to Avengers winning the tournament. So it's those two. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be one of your two favorites. But generally speaking, it is commonly accepted that the two top comic book movies of all time are Dark Knight and The Avengers. And it's cool if it's not one of your top two. It's cool if it's not a bunch of your friends' top two. I'm just saying, done a lot of polls and a lot of crap like that. It usually comes back Dark Knight and The Avengers. So the question is, does that topic of two need to become a topic of three? And here's why you might want to say yes to that. One of the great things about these two top comic book movies being Dark Knight and Avengers is that they're so different from each other. Like in The Avengers, you have the representation of the very best of what comic book movies can be in terms of entertainment and fun and, just great characters and all those great things that a comic book movie should be. Then you look at The Dark Knight, and it's all the great things, the other great things that a good comic book movie should be. It's gritty. It's got its own great history and mythology to it. It's got it's more of a crime thing. It looks more of the world of crime. It's got all those other things. So it's like you've got the two sides of the coin of what a great comic book movie should be. And on the one side, The Dark Knight represents the best of the one side. On the other side, you got Avengers, which kind of represents the best of the other side, and that's great. And the really cool thing about Logan being in this conversation is that Logan is quite different from both The Dark Knight and Avengers. And it's really its own different type of film. You're talking about three movies that are all very different from each other. Is Logan as good as The Dark Knight or Avengers? That's a tough thing to say because, like I said, they are very, very different movies. But if you were to ask me today, and my answer 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now or a year from now might be different. So let me just put that asterisk there, okay? If you were to ask me right now, I'd say Logan is one of the top 3 comic book movies ever made. I have a hard time And that's no disrespect whatsoever to, Captain America Civil War or Winter Soldier or Batman Begins or anything like that. It's no disrespect. Everybody knows I like those films very, 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 very much. But yeah, I'm going to today say it belongs in the top 3. Does it bump Dark Knight or Avengers out of that 1 or 2 spot? I don't know about that. They are completely different movies. That will depend on who you ask, I'm sure. But I think Logan belongs in that conversation. Now, the real test will be ask us that question 2 years from now, once we're separated from Logan a little bit more, once Logan has been around for a few years. Let's see how it stands up. That's always the big test, because the way we think about it today may not be the way we think about it tomorrow. So let's keep some cool heads. But if I had to give the answer right now, I'll say yes, that option of 2 should probably now become a conversation of 3 films as the pinnacles, the hallmarks of how a great comic book movie can be. You got to look at Avengers, you got to look at Dark Knight, and I think you got to look at Logan. But again, let's see what we're answering in a few years. Avengers and Dark Knight have clearly stood the test of time. Let's see if Logan does that as well. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. We move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Aniano Lara, who writes, Hey, John, big fan of you since the AMC days. Thank you so much, Aniano. My question is, whatever happened to the Highlander reboot? I remember hearing about it a couple years ago, but never found out what really happened to it. Did the project die, or is it in development hell? Love to hear your thoughts about it. Yeah, I always say all film is subjective, and nothing is more true than when I list off my personal top 10 movies of all time. And a lot of people, whether the films in my list are exactly the same as the films in people's lists, people go, okay, yeah, that film, sure, I can understand that. And I list all my top 10. Yeah, Shawshank Redemption, yeah. Lawrence of Arabia, yeah. Godfather, yeah. It's when I get to the Highlander that people go, really? You have the Highlander in your top 10 films of all time? Yep, guilty. I do. I love the Highlander. Again, all films subjective. Certain films will strike different people different ways. There's just something about the Highlander. Christopher Lambert, Clancy Brown, Sean Connery, of course. There's something about that movie and the way it's structured and the way it's put together that just hits me in all the right ways. I love that movie. There can be only one until 7 sequels and 2 TV shows later. Otherwise, there can be only one. I love that movie, man. I love it so much. Okay, anyway. For the longest time, they've been talking about a reboot. And even for like a year, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, was attached to be the new Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod. And that was kind of... And then they had a director attached. That director left, and they had another director attached. But Ryan Reynolds was still attached to be the star of it. Then eventually that fell apart. However, I can tell you that the Highlander reboot is alive and well. It's actually right now being run by Chad Stahelski, who is one of the directors of the first John Wick film and the solo director of John Wick 2. And that should get you excited. The director of the 2 John Wick films is right. Yeah, so he's been talking a lot about the Highlander actually over the last year. Now, he's also talking in terms of he wants to make a new trilogy of Highlander movies. And I'm like, Chad, just slow down. Let's get one. Let's get one out there. Make one pretty good. And then maybe let's talk about a trilogy at that point. So, but he is talking about it. He wants to do it. It's going to be a reboot. Does that mean that whoever they cast in the lead is going to actually be Connor McLeod? Or they can look at a different aspect of the Highlander culture? I think it would be Connor McLeod. I know they're going to completely ignore Highlander 2, where it turns out Highlander 2, one of the 3 worst films of all time, by the way. My top worst films of all time, Battlefield Earth, Catwoman, and The Highlander 2. And that's just right, because in The Highlander 2, they completely rip up the mythology from Highlander 1. Turns out the Highlanders, according to Highlander 2, are aliens from a movie called Zeist. They're aliens. And so anyway, Highlander 3 and 4 and the TV show all completely ignore Highlander 2. Completely ignore. And I assume Chad will do the same. It's funny. Chad was doing an interview about Highlander. And he was talking about, yeah, he saw some of the early drafts of what was going to be the Highlander reboot, and they said it had aliens and monsters, and Chad was just like, nope, I'm not into that stuff. Let's just get back to the Highlander, which got me really excited. So, as of right now, the Highlander is in Chad Stahelski's hands. He's working on it. He's very excited about it. That doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. I hope it does, especially with a director like him attached to it. We're just going to have to wait and see what transpires. All right, now let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Jorge Diaz, who writes, "Hey, John, with it finally out and receiving some acclaim, what do you think about Warner Brothers using Bill Skarsgård in the Joker origin movie as a young Joker? I think he would do a terrific job and wondering how you would feel about it. Keep up the great work." Well, thanks a lot for the question, Jorge. And yeah, Bill Skarsgård from the Skarsgård family. Yes, all those other Skarsgårds you've heard of, he's related to them. It's a very talented, it's the new Baldwin family, apparently. But anyway, Bill is, of course, our new Pennywise. He hasn't done a lot, but he was Pennywise. And you know what? He did a very good job as Pennywise. I thought he did a really good job as Pennywise. Now, granted, I'll say this. I don't think being Pennywise was, much harder than I could have done. But for a trained actor, I don't think it was the most difficult part in the world. You know, talk menacingly and do this. Now, clearly, Bill can do it much better than I did it. Just did it. But I think for a trained actor, I don't think it was the hardest role in the world to do. I think a lot of that came from the director. The bottom line is, I don't know that it gave us a true sample size of how good of an actor is Bill Skarsgård. I'm just saying, I don't think we can know yet, and I don't think we can know positively or negatively from it and how much he played. Now, certainly, I think he played the role well. I think he played Pennywise very well. I think it was a very solid Pennywise. Big fan of his work in there. I just don't know that that gives us a real inkling of how good, truly good of an actor he may be. And maybe he's okay of an actor. Maybe he's Oscar caliber. I just don't think it really shows us that much at this point. But here's the part that I'm going to admit. I'm not picking on you, Jorge, okay? I'm just saying this is a general theme I find, okay? That kind of makes me roll my eyes a little bit. Why are we bringing up, because believe me, Jorge, you're not the only one who's emailed me. I've had a lot of people email me over the past week or so. Oh my gosh, Bill Skarsgård should be Joker. Why? Because you saw him in clown makeup? Because you saw him in clown makeup, that makes him the perfect Joker? It reminds me a lot of when Man of Steel was coming, or I should say Batman versus Superman was coming out. And it was still early on in the process and they hadn't cast Lex Luthor yet. And people will like some people will deny this now, but this was a huge trending topic, was Billy Zane should totally be Lex Luthor. Why? Why was there this big uproar about so many people saying Billy Zane should be Lex Luthor? Because there was a picture online of Billy Zane with a shaved head. It's like, oh my gosh, look, he's got a shaved head. That's your Lex Luthor. Look, this guy's got clown makeup on in a movie. He should be Joker. It's like, really? I mean, really? You know what? And I'm sure I do it too. And I will roll my eyes at myself. I'm sure I do it too. You do it. I think a lot of us do it. But it is one of the sillier things that we, and I'm guilty too, that we as film fans do. It's like, oh, that guy's got a bald head. He should be Lex Luthor. That guy's got big sideburns. He should be the next Wolverine. That guy's wearing clown makeup. Clearly, he should be the next Joker. So, no, I don't see the connection there. I don't think seeing Bill Skarsgård does anything to either improve the odds that he should be Joker or take away from his odds of being the Joker. Not one or the other. It's just he was just a guy wearing clown makeup. And so we all jump up and down and go, that's our new Joker. And again, I'm guilty of this too. Not necessarily with Bill Skarsgård, but I mean, with other things too. It's like, wait a minute, I saw this actor do a role that's kind of like that one once. He should be this guy. I mean, we all do it. But it is, I think, one of the sillier impulses that all of us, me included, as film fans is, yeah, bald head, oh my God, that guy's Lex Luthor. I mean, it's just one of those things that we do, and I hope we find a way to stop doing it. So, again, look, once again, just to answer the question flat out, I don't know if Bill Skarsgård can be the young Joker because I simply don't know how good of an actor he is yet. I'm really anxious to see him in something else out of the clown makeup when he's not playing a demon. When I want to see him do something else to see just how good he is, because I don't think Pennywise gave Bill Skarsgård necessarily the opportunity to truly show us how good of an actor he is. And I want to see that before I start talking Joker, and I want to see him out of clown makeup before we start talking Joker or anything like that. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Maybe you guys have a totally different thought, and that's cool too. Jump in the comments section. Leave your thoughts, man. All right, moving on now to the final question of the day. And the final question today comes to us from Tyler Mitchell. And Tyler Mitchell writes, "Hey, John, my question is, do you think we'll see the Avengers Infinity War trailer when Thor Ragnarok comes out? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy." Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. It's like, I haven't taken a when are we going to see the Thor Infinity War trailer question for a while because people were asking like 8 months ago, where's the trailer? It's like the movie's a year away. Give it a break. But now the movie's still quite a ways away. But we are now getting into that window of time where it's not unreasonable for, one could maybe expect Marvel to drop the first teaser for Avengers Infinity War. We're getting into that window now. It's now becoming a reasonable conversation about when are we going to get this. Now, asking in the question, could it be with Thor Ragnarok? Well, it's possible, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think we're going to get the Infinity War trailer before Thor Ragnarok. I don't think they're going to wait till November. I think either late September this month or sometime in October. I think we are going to get the Infinity War trailer prior to Thor Ragnarok coming out. I don't think they're going to wait that long. I think they're going to get their first trailer out earlier than that. And it won't be, I don't think, just that teaser that they played at Comic-Con that most people have seen by now anyway. I don't think it'll be that one. I think it's going to be a new, true, legit trailer. Because I remember with Civil War, they had a sizzle reel similar to like the Infinity War sizzle reel that they played at Comic-Con. They had one of those for Civil War that they played at D23. And when the first trailer came out, it was nothing like that. It was something totally new and totally different. So I expect that sometime, probably within the next 6 weeks, we are going to get a Avengers Infinity War trailer. It'll be nothing like the sizzle, maybe a couple of similar shots, but I think overall it'll be a very different trailer than that sizzle we got at Comic-Con. And yeah, I don't think they're going to wait as long as Thor Ragnarok. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today for this installment of the John Campea Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Again, guys, take a second. Donate $2, $3, $5, $50, $150 if you can. Take a second, help out your fellow humankind, your fellow movie fans who are down in Texas, who are in Florida right now that are dealing with some terrible shit. Get out there, donate a little bit of money, help these people out. If you have to choose between becoming a Patreon supporter this month or helping out people in Florida and Texas, fuck my Patreon. Go support the people who actually need clean water, need some food, need some bed sheets, because we've got it pretty damn good compared to a lot of those people down there right now. Go donate some money to them, and then maybe we'll talk about my Patreon next month or in 2 months or in 6 months, whatever. But go help those people out. Thanks a lot for joining me, guys. While you're here, take a second, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, spread the word around, share my videos on your Facebook and on Twitter, and make sure you follow me on social media. You can see that right here at John Campea. Just follow me on social media there. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.